It's our desire that through Jesus Christ, you'll know real life. And to help you discover what that truly means, download our free app and you'll have immediate access to the real-life television broadcasts, the daily Real Radio podcasts with Pastor Jack's teachings, Words to the Wise daily devotions, access to social connections with Pastor Jack through Facebook and YouTube, tools and resources to grow in Christ, and much more. Download the app today for all your mobile devices. Go to reallifewithjackhibbs.org for more information. Politics and Faith. Jack Hibbs, in his 5-part DVD series, will help us understand how we as Christians should view the subject of politics in the light of our faith. What are the core issues that should define our worldview? Our support of Israel, protecting the unborn, traditional marriage. It's time to think these things through. Christians have long understood it's not enough to stand on the sidelines, leaving the direction of this great nation to those who would lead it astray. Our heritage demands that we be involved. Order the DVD set Politics and Faith. For a gift of any amount to the ongoing ministry of Real Life, we'll send you this DVD set for free. Go online to reallifewithjackhibbs.org or call 877-777-2346 or write P.O. Box 1273, Chino Hills, California, 91709.
Well, today on Real Life, we've got actually a continued conversation, but an addition. We've got Brad Dacus with us, president and founder of the Pacific Justice Institute, and Gina Gleason, who heads up and is director of Faith and Public Policy. And so these are topics, I think, or titles that people are tempted to tune out right now, saying as a Christian, who cares? But actually what we're going to be talking about and what you both are fighting in the public square is really shaping the future of not only our communities, but our state and the nation, for that matter. So we just want to jump right into this. For those who are in the Southern California area, for that matter, California area, and I know, Brad, in our previous program, we had talked about Assembly Bill 1266. And that here in California, there was a great push against the governor's signing into law without the right of the California voter to vote on it, regarding this anti-bullying law. But when you look at the reality of it, it's actually a law that would promote bullying. And it's a mess. We can talk about it. But a petition drive was enacted. And with a very brief period of time, an overwhelming response of people acted so quickly. Parents, it was amazing to see grandparents and even young people say, no, this is a bad law. We need to get this to the California voter. And so by God's grace and a lot of hard work, enough petitions had been signed, and now we're waiting at this stage of the game to see the outcome of that. That was a mouthful. Somebody might say, why do that? Why get involved? I'm a Christian and I don't want to get involved in those things. Those are political things. Explain to me, Brad, how that's not a political thing, but it is more than that.
This, as I said in our last program, this matter is a love of Jesus test. You know, if someone is filled with the love of Christ, then they're going to care about other people. If you care about other people, you cannot be silent. You have no choice but to speak up, because the impact on these children, innocent children, is going to be so huge and so life-changing that it's compelling for us as true believers, as true Christians who've experienced the love and grace of Christ in our lives, to speak up and to get involved.
Gina, you mobilized churches and individuals really statewide. I mean, it was a statewide effort, and I want to thank you publicly. You did an amazing job, and it's awesome to see the fruit of what you have done. But what would you say was the most encouraging thing regarding seeing people get on board? What encouraged you?
I think the biggest thing that stands out is the passion of the people to stand for righteousness. The average citizen getting up, going out into the community, collecting signatures when it's not something that they typically do. For a person to go stand in front of a Walmart and collect signatures, and they've never had experience doing that, that's a big step for a citizen to do. And they were very passionate. It was mothers, fathers, grandparents, and like you said, young people. They know what's involved, and they didn't want to see this in the public schools, so they took steps, and that was a really big thing that we saw passion.
You know, Lisa and I, we were out in front of our local Target store, and I actually didn't know this. No one had ever told me this before, but I was surprised at how many women and when I say women, I'm talking about kids who are still, they couldn't sign the petition. They're too young.
Right.
But they saw or they heard what was going on, and they said the same thing that the older women had said. And it was, hey, I don't even want to take my clothes off in the girls' locker room, and I'm a girl.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's weird. Because guys are guys. They're running around naked and slapping each other with the towels, and guys are different in the guy showers.
Girls are different.
Girls,
Definitely.
and that, I didn't really realize that.
Right.
And
Oh,
it was
gosh,
amazing
yeah.
to see old and young say, no, not good to introduce a guy into the public shower forum and like that. So I was overwhelmed. I talked to one lady who was from England. She had just moved here, and she couldn't sign. She's not a registered voter. And she said, you know what, in a lot of ways, this is something that led to me coming to America. This is stuff that are going on in England. This is one of the things I left Europe for, which was interesting.
Wow.
She wants to see her freedom, but somebody might say, well, no, we need to have freedom, and we need to let this thing pass and become law. And I want to ask you about that. It is law right now, right? It's not in effect yet, but
Correct.
it is law.
January 1st, scheduled to go
January
into effect, yeah.
So for those who don't know, Gina, tell us real quick, someone who doesn't know anything about AB 1266, what's the big problem?
Basically, it opens the restrooms, the showers, and the bathrooms to people of the opposite sex. And they simply have to say that they identify as the opposite sex and they're granted access.
At the same time of the opposite sex being there, which is real important.
Right.
Yeah.
So a boy can walk into the girl's bathroom by simply saying that he identifies as a girl. The problem with that is that any boy can say that he identifies,
boy.
whether or not he's transgender or has any issues with
Because
sexual identity.
there's no, for example, parental appointed discussion, or even for that matter, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not even a state-appointed psychologist or somebody to
Absolutely
first evaluate
nothing.
the child,
Right, no
examine
evaluation.
the child.
Nothing.
No counseling input is allowed or taken into consideration. The parents' input is not taken into consideration. No one's input is taken into consideration. It's just whatever the child says, and at that time, bam, immediate access to the opposite sexes.
And the school has no way of stopping the child from doing that. It's just a matter of the child identifying as the opposite sex.
You know,
Right.
I had a LA County deputy sheriff say who investigates sex crimes. This woman said, I shudder. I'm trying to remember exactly how she said it, but it was, I'll be close. I shudder to see my future workload after January 1st regarding the investigation of sexual crimes that are going to take place in this setting.
Right, and I think it's important to note, too, when we talk about transgenders, many people just assume, well, they must be homosexual. So if a boy says he feels he has a girl inside, therefore he's probably attracted to boys, so there's probably no problem with him showering and dressing in front of girls. That's not true. Studies vary from 50% to 90% are not homosexuals. That is, even though they feel like they're female on the inside, they're still sexually attracted to the opposite sex. That's
Right.
very problematic when you're talking about lockers and showers. It's going to be very, very problematic.
We have to protect this program to some degree, but right now, regarding what I'm going to say, so in light of what you just described, Brad, a boy goes in thinking, I'm transgender, so I don't know, maybe I'm a homosexual, I don't know. He goes in, even with what we would call the best intentions. But he has eyes, and he has a biology. He's got chemistry flowing.
Exactly.
Right.
In a second, in 10 seconds, he is going to have a biological, sexual response to what he's looking at.
Right.
Now, the people I've talked to, they don't want to even go there. Right. People who said, no, let this bill happen. When I brought that up, they got a little, red in the face. They didn't want to talk about it. But who's fooling who here? The truth is that is going to happen.
Yes.
And who's going to handle this situation? Who's going to deal with this boy or with this girl who is in this condition?
School officials.
How are they qualified?
Yeah, and they're not.
And do you have a male deal with the male or a male deal with the female? Or vice? How do you fix this?
It's going to be very problematic. We at Pacific Justice Institute have a matter similar to this in Colorado, Florence, Colorado. And in that school district, this school district, this maverick school district, rogue, so to speak, has this policy letting this boy who feels that he is a girl to go into the girls' bathrooms, the girls' locker rooms. Some girls have protested this, said they don't even want to go to the bathroom. They try to hold it in all day. They feel very violated, and yet the school district's response is, too bad, you're being intolerant, you need to be accommodative and tolerant towards this boy who has these feelings. It's a very topsy-turvy, it's upside down, and unfortunately, I think there's going to be some school districts in California they'll be resistant of this, but there'll be others who have that kind of an attitude, and it's going to be very, very problematic for a lot of kids.
I would expect two things to happen. Number one, private school enrollment's going to go through the roof. Thank God, right? Number two is the public school coffers are going to suffer greatly because when you remove those kids from the pay arena, that is going to have a huge impact.
Yeah, it will.
It really will. Gina, you spoke with a couple of ladies who had talked to their congressman, and tell us about that.
It was an assembly member that held a public event, and they went to talk to him about his vote on AB1266, voting in favor of it.
Here in California.
Here in California. And when they questioned him, he ran away from his vote, basically, is what he did. And what he said was that everything that you're hearing about it is just right-wing propaganda, there's no truth involved, and there's plenty of protections in this law, which there aren't.
There are not.
And so basically he was running from his vote. So as the year goes on, and even next year, God willing, we get on the ballot, this will be a major issue for the people that voted for the legislators that voted for this.
You mean an election issue?
Election issue.
Oh, good.
It's going to be a big election issue. And they're going to have to defend their vote on this bill.
That's right.
Help me with a little bit of the hypocrisy of this. Doesn't the Capitol in Sacramento have segregated bathrooms? Male-female bathrooms?
They sure do, and as a matter of fact, I understand that there are even bathrooms that you have to press a code to get into.
So, However, we discovered that one of the floors, there's been an announcement that went out to the legislative offices, letting them know that there was a female that was going to start using the male restrooms, and they were given notice of that. And I don't know if it's a part of the political maneuvering, if it's a stunt. But there were a number of legislators who have really felt just very distraught about this.
Adults.
And they're adults. Well, this, AB 1266, we're talking about children.
Now look, no one believes how young this starts with, but I don't want to say it, I know. I'm going to ask you guys, how young in the public school setting is this law being
First
revealed?
day of kindergarten.
First day of kindergarten is when it kicks in. So a kindergartner, first day kindergartner has some issues, then they're going to be put in a situation that can be very damaging to them in their development. And I think it's important to note, I've heard of one study that shows that 70% of the children in elementary, pre-puberty, who have this dysphoria kind of an issues, as they're working through their gender identity, which is a process, then 70% of them end up resolving it.
That's right.
When they grow up in life. Well, what are we doing? Making things more complex, more compounded.
That's exactly correct.
By confusing that identity and causing the dysphoria to be even more compounded. It makes no sense whatsoever, and it's very lacking of compassion when we're telling any child struggling through this, you can have the counselor is irrelevant, your parents are irrelevant. And we're going to just one size fits all, treat you like this, even though it could be the worst thing when it comes to their development.
That sounds like something coming right out of Nazi Germany in 1937 or something like that, huh?
Right. It is a cold-hearted piece of legislation lacking compassion for those that they are allegedly trying to help.
Yeah, exactly. Gina, how do the 49 other states respond to what they might be thinking right now? Well, that's a California thing, but as we all know, what happens in California is exported to 49 of the states.
Right.
How does somebody start the process to fight such a terrible thing that's going to affect their children and grandchildren?
Well, I think most of the states look at us like that's crazy California, left-wing California, and so they do pay attention to what's going on in California, though, because they do realize eventually it will get to their state. And when I talk to pastors that are outside of the state of California, and they say, well, we don't need to get involved, or we don't need to think about this because you guys are dealing with a whole bunch of issues that we don't have to worry about. And I say, yes, but eventually it's going to get to your state, and you need to be prepared, and you need to get on board, and you need to pay attention to what's going on, because it's coming to your state very soon.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Gina, so what if a state, what if parents, concerned citizens, and let's just hypothetically pick on Arizona right now. Arizona now, it's like 2014, looking ahead in the future, Arizona has a similar AB1266. Can they contact you? Can they contact Faith and Public Policy?
Definitely contact us, because we have a lot of experience in fighting this type of legislation. But one of the things we're going to tell them is that you need to get organized. We believe that every church should have one person identified that is going to monitor what's going on in the culture, in the state's legislature, and that will make a big difference if we could have the churches alerted and awake, trained up, and know what to do when these laws come to their state.
Instead of always being behind them.
Catching up.
Exactly.
Now Gina you have a web page. I saw your web page. It's fantastic. It's got so much in the way of resources to really make it easy for people to do this, for a church to get involved in a very easy, systematic way. So I encourage people to go to your website. What is your website again?
Faithandpublicpolicy.org.
Faithandpublicpolicy.org.
Yeah.
And while we're at it, tell us how to contact Pacific.
Oh yes, you can contact Pacific Justice Institute at pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org, pji.org. And we have wonderful resources there as well, all without charge.
That's amazing. Real quick, the strategies and the defenses, or the defense that's brought up, the battles that are before us. You talked about being organized in advance. Brad, you've been doing this warfare since 1997.
Right.
Speak to the culture of a church. I would assume that most people watching this program are Christians. Gina, you've had a lot of experience with this. Speak to this culture about a church that says, I don't think we should get involved in that. How do you enlighten them?
I know that when I read my Bible, the Bible tells me that I need to be salt and light. The Bible tells me I need to be like Jesus. So when I see things like this happening to children in the public schools and just to the culture overall, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to say, no, that's wrong, and this is what I believe. And if there's laws that are changing the way we live as citizens, we should take action. I mean, of course we should vote, but we should also be well-informed citizens, well-informed Christians. Knowledge is powerful. And if we ignore these things, I mean, we're going to continue to see the state and the nation go down this path that we just don't want to see. So we need to be involved as citizens.
You know, Christ said it's better for a man to have a millstone tied around his neck and thrown into the sea than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. So as far as Jesus is concerned, who is the center of Christianity, we really have no option there. And yet, I talked to a pastor, and he told me, as far as the petitions, he says, we have some new people in our church, some new believers, and I definitely know they think of things differently, and I don't want to cause them, to stumble. I don't want to cause them to leave the church. I said, you know what, Pastor? I totally understand where you're coming from, and I agree. I said, bringing in things that are just, political, they can be very divisive. I think that's very wise not to do that. I said, but fortunately, this is not a political matter.
Amen.
This is a matter of showing love and compassion for millions of children that are going to be victimized because of this pending law. And that's something that every Christian, no matter where they are on the political spectrum, has to speak up on. And I think that's really important for pastors to make distinctions between things that are political and arbitrary, you can go either way on, and things that God's word is very clear and that the love of Christ compels us not to be silent on.
Yeah, amen. That's exactly right. Interestingly enough, for those who are familiar, who's not familiar with the name John MacArthur, it was interesting, and his church is north of here. It was interesting that during the redefinition of marriage, I was going to say effort in California, which is kind of, in my opinion, turned into a scandal in California. But MacArthur, who always avoided those things, and I'm actually paraphrasing him. You could look online his own message where he gave this talk to his congregation. He said, "I've avoided those things for some 25 years. I decided not to ever speak to those cultural issues and viewed them as political." And yet he asked his congregation to forgive him because he said, "I think I've made a mistake in this area." Why? What was he saying? He was saying what you just said a moment ago. I took a biblical worldview issue, and for whatever reasons, only God knows the heart, but it was tucked into a political corner, which gave me now the freedom to not deal with it. I have the license to ignore it. And marriage is not a political issue, no matter how you spin it. Abortion is not a political issue.
No.
And as we've seen with 1266, you tell a mom and a dad, "Oh, mom, dad, do you believe that your leaders have your best child's interest in mind?" Well, you want to hope so, but when they make a law like they've done, by fiat basically, meaning without us Californians being able to vote on it, to decide on our own children's fate, what's amazing is naturally the parents rose up, the grandparents rose up, concerned citizens rose up.
Right.
Why? They recognized what was right inside of them morally, not that they were Christians.
Right.
Morally what was right, and that conclusion led them to declare that's a wrong or bad law.
Right.
Brad, and I'll ask you both, but Brad, if I remember right, Isaiah chapter 10 verse 1 says, woe to those who issue bad laws and bring grief or misfortune upon the people.
Right.
Talk to us as Christians. Is it possible for a bad law to be passed? Aren't we supposed to be submissive to the laws of the land, Brad?
Yes. Yeah, and that's what's interesting about our country, is because we have laws in our land, and those laws are passed not by the Caesar or by the king, they're passed by our representatives. And those representatives, how do they get in office? They get in office by people voting. And people who vote are people who care.
Yeah.
So it really comes back down to, we are a nation of the people. We are a nation of laws that are put there because of we the people.
Yeah.
So it's a responsibility that we have as Christians to be involved and to be a part of the lawmaking process.
Yeah.
Yes, respect the laws that we have, absolutely. But at the same time, be a part of the process of constructing those laws, absolutely.
Gina?
It's just a matter of, you know what's right inside. I mean, it's very obvious, even a person that may not be a Christian. You know that some laws that allow boys and girls to share public bathrooms, it's just wrong. So, I mean, just even looking from that perspective, I think that a parent, for instance, I had one mom that came to our office on a regular basis, asking the Lord every day, Lord, give me 10 signatures today, 10 signatures. Wow. And she would come with her little 5-year-old and 6-year-old child, and she was out collecting, and every week she brought more than 10 every day. But she knew that law was wrong. It was going to be bad for her kids. It was going to be harmful and dangerous for her kids to be put in that situation. And that passion was just there, and she took action because basically it's a bad law.
Yeah.
What's awesome about what we're talking about is the fact that we have what we call our biblical worldview. Everyone has a worldview. It doesn't matter who you are. You have a worldview. It's what was given to you. It's what you have then formulated. We were all brought up a certain way. Whatever that way was, we've added to that, and we have our worldview. And obviously, the angle or the perspective from this program, from this table, is a biblical worldview. And so it's the Word of God that dictates our thinking. Now, a lot of people can't handle that. I understand that. In fact, the Bible even said there'd be times coming when people could not handle that. But the most important thing about our biblical worldview is the fact that He who has brought us to this table today is none other than Jesus Christ.
Right.
I just saw on Fox News that one of their Democrat liberal news contributors has accepted Jesus Christ.
Right.
Kirsten Powers.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, and I watched her interview, and so far she seems like she's been really rooted and grounded on what to expect, which is great.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, she mentioned in her interview that she underestimated the attack that would come against her from her liberal friends. Why? It's bottom line, it's this: Jesus Christ is the reason why we fight. Jesus Christ is the reason why we love.
Yes.
Jesus Christ is the reason why we breathe. Jesus Christ is everything to us. And you might say, well, that's religion, just stop right there. No, it's not religion. Jesus actually condemned religion. Jesus is the one who said to you, to me, from the Bible, that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever, that's you and I, if we would believe in him, we would not perish but have everlasting life. If this program has blessed you at all, or if you'd like to find out more about what Brad offers or about what Gina offers, you can contact Brad at pacificjusticeinstitute.org, pacificjusticeinstitute.org, or you can get a hold of Gina at faithandpublicpolicy.org. That's faithandpublicpolicy.org. God bless you. Until next time.
Politics and Faith. Jack Hibbs, in his 5-part DVD series, will help us understand how we as Christians should view the subject of politics in the light of our faith. What are the core issues that should define our worldview? Our support of Israel, protecting the unborn, traditional marriage. It's time to think these things through. Christians have long understood it's not enough to stand on the sidelines, leaving the direction of this great nation to those who would lead it astray. Our heritage demands that we be involved. Order the DVD set Politics and Faith. For a gift of any amount to the ongoing ministry of Real Life, we'll send you this DVD set for free. Go online to reallifewithjackhibbs.org or call 877-777-2346 or write P.O. Box 1273, Chino Hills, California, 91709. Jack Hibbs truly believes we are living in some of the most exciting days in history, which brings some great opportunities to share with the world a powerful, no-nonsense presentation of the gospel to this generation who is searching for answers and truth. Will you stand with us in sharing this message in real and practical ways? We ask that you commit to support Real Life each month with a gift of your choosing. In return, our gift to you for becoming a Real Life partner, we'd like to send you this Worldview DVD. It's titled, What You Believe Defines You. Call now, 1-877-777-2346. That's 877-777-2346. Or by mail, P.O. Box 1273, Chino Hills, California, 91709. Or simply go to reallifewithjackhibbs.org. Your gift will be faithfully put to work because it's our desire that through Jesus Christ you will know real life.